Hey, this is Dag, and you're listening to Beyond Trek Podcast.
Red alert.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Beyond Trek Podcast. I'm your host, Big J, here along with Renzo and Susie Q. So we're going to talk about Star Trek Discovery episode
12. Yeah. Season 4, episode 12. 4.
It's been too long of a day. Season 4.
The episode is titled The Species 10C.
Yeah. Sorry. I should start that over, but fuck it. As the DMA approaches Earth and Navarre, all things considered, that's one of our better ones. Captain Burnham and the crew of the U.S.S. Discovery attempt to make first contact with a powerful species responsible before it's too late. So, Renzo, you'd like to start us with the play-by-play?
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, for sure. So episode starts with just like Discovery approaching this like vast ovoid mass, the hyperfield itself. And while I expected it to either be just invisible or maybe like shimmery blue energy, it actually looks physical, looks solid on the outside. It looks like it has patterns on it. It looks very advanced, but it looks almost indecipherable, right? Yeah. Did you guys get any particular vibes from it? Because I have two things that it really referenced to me.
To me, I can't say that it looked anything different than any other large sphere construction that you'd see in sci-fi. I did notice all the, here's the one thing I'll say, the external part of it, the outside part with all the designs, lines, to me, that seemed a little extra. I mean, that was, who's going to see that? Why was that there? That's about the only thing I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the patterns reminded me of something, but I can't place it. But they were pretty. I think they were pretty to look at more than anything. I don't know if they were like utilitarian in any way. I just think they were like, all right, cool. We're up on this massive new thing in space. Let's make it pretty. I thought that was cool.
I think it was mostly just aesthetic. I don't think it was like a practical thing. But the two things it really reminded me of were, one, if you guys ever saw the old movie The Abyss with essentially beings that live under the oceans of the Earth, essentially, it reminds me a lot of them, their hulls, and especially when the tendril reaches out and grabs Discovery and such, straight out of The Abyss for me. And the second thing that it really struck me as is it reminds me a lot of Stargate. Not anything in particular, but when you look at the technology of like the old ships, it's got that same kind of cool swirly patterns and metallic look to it. Yeah, I thought it looked really neat. I was a fan. I'm glad it wasn't just like, oh, here's our green shimmery bubble that you can't see through.
That's a good point. Yeah, no, and I mean, I feel like if they had gone sort of the utilitarian route, or like this is a practical thing, I feel like it wouldn't have been as like someone, I don't know who it was on Twitter, someone compared it to, it was sort of a rival-y a little bit. And I think that there's something to be said for like, yeah, we just got to make it pretty.
There's a lot of arrival in this episode.
Yeah,
there's a lot of arrival in this episode. I'm not sure if that was it for me, but it definitely has that like weird alien kind of vibe to it. Yeah. Which is obviously the point.
That do that, but anyway.
Yeah. So anyways, they discuss how big the thing is. It's massive. It's 1.5 AUs in radius, which is large enough to encompass like almost all the way to Mars in our solar system. They can't scan through it. They debate raising shields. And as we've seen many a times in Star Trek, the captain was like, we don't want that to be perceived as an aggressive move, which is valid.
So what are shields going to do against this? It didn't do anything against V'ger. Kirk was smart enough not to want that.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, and you're in such a situation where nothing you do can possibly harm it. You just want to seem innocent and harmless. So
that's true.
But yeah, so they go back and forth a bit. They don't detect any weapons. In fact, they detect nothing at all. They don't even detect the hyperfield as though it wasn't there at all. So they got to figure out a way to get them to be acknowledged.
Why would it be visible? If you had this kind of technology, why wouldn't it be cloaked or something like that? Am I missing?
Because they don't give a fuck.
Oh,
they are so beyond the general area around them. Who cares if they see it?
Yeah. Who would they expect to come around?
maybe it can cloak. Maybe they just didn't turn it on this time. Like they're probably just so beyond that they just don't even care.
Bob, it was your turn to turn on the cloak today. God damn it.
God damn it, Bob.
Yes. So they try hailing for a bunch of time. And then, they realize, we've only got 15 hours. We better come up with something new. Let's try our backup plan. Right. So here we get another report explaining the whole hydrocarbons thing and how they're going to infuse the hydrocarbon for being, what was it? Harmless? Not harmless. What was the word they used? Peacefulness. Yeah. It was peacefulness inside of a bunch of .23s and sprayed on the hull of the thing. There's some concern about getting close to the hyperfield, which is valid, right? But if you don't take risks, you're not going to succeed here. It's all about time for taking risks. They've only got 15 hours, right? So
they don't have time to dick around. Right. Well, it's a good thing they went to the planet to get all the perfume samples, or they'd be up shit's creek.
Right. Well, I mean, Dr. Harai even points it out specifically, right? Like, if we keep doing the same thing, why would we expect a different response, right? You've been hailing for a while. They clearly don't give a shit. So let's do something new. And This is clearly new. I thought the idea of spraying the pheromone or the hydrocarbon chain on the hull of the thing was interesting. I wasn't sure it would work, but I thought it was a cool idea.
I couldn't think of, and you're right. I was trying to think, how are they going to actually utilize this? And when they were spraying it on the hull, okay. I mean, that was, I guess, if that's all they had, but I wasn't expecting that.
I mean, it's an interesting idea, right? Like, if this is their chemical symbol for something, right? And you can spray it on the hull of their ship or in front of their ship or like generally around their ship, their sensors should detect it. Their sensors obviously are advanced, and they may get the message, right? Oh, they're spraying peacefulness. Maybe we should try and figure out what the fuck they want. These little noises they're making are clearly nonsense, but they're spraying the chemicals right.
Or someone spray painted our house.
That too. Yeah. Just throwing rocks at the windows at this point. Like,
I mean, everything's a risk, right? When you can't communicate properly.
Yeah. But at this point, they don't really have an option other than let's do stuff. Let's try using this particular non-harmful chemical and just spray it at them and see if maybe they acknowledge our existence so we can possibly save billions of people from death. At this point, we'll go with that. Sounds good.
Yeah. Let's try that. And then there's this interesting conversation from Ndoye about, like, if they're that close, would they have any time to respond or evade an attack? And the response is like, we don't know if we'd be able to respond or evade an attack at full warp. We have no idea, which promptly does shut up that train of conversation because they just don't know.
Well, they're all in now. They're not going to escape. If anything bad happens, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
There's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah.
So our next scene is now with Saru checking in with Stamets to see if they're ready to go. But Stamets and Adira are still like infusing the various .23s and they've got some more to go. So it's a really heartwarming scene between the two of them where they are definitely working hard in engineering, trying to get these things up and ready. And they're under a lot of pressure. And this is when Zora decides to chime in that something feels wrong. And it's the whininess of the computer sometimes that I find a little off-putting. Like, I like the idea of a sentient ship. I really do. But she just comes off as kind of naive, kind of unprepared. That's the word I'll use. Zora comes off as unprepared to be doing the ship work that she's doing.
A little bit. I think that for me, it almost felt like when you're a kid and you go in your parents' bedroom in the middle of the night, like, Mom, I threw up. Like, that's kind of what it felt like to me. Of just sort of like, she doesn't really know how to be like, hey, yo, something's not, I don't think this, I mean, this is important. I don't want to interrupt, but like, I feel like, and he's clearly irritated, but he's like, okay, cool. It's fine. Breathe. Yeah. Pull it together, you know? It's like, I'll talk to you. Just
Stamets is very much like, did you run a diagnostic? Was there anything wrong? Okay, then not my problem. Psychological. Go to Culver. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. But it felt very sort of like, Dad, I threw up, sort of middle of the night.
Did you turn it off and turn it on again?
It's also super Stamets, right? Like it's super in character to be like, did you run the diagnostic? There's nothing wrong then. Go away. Even for a character that he's kind of being very paternalistic towards in a good way. Like he's being dad to Zora sometimes.
Yeah,
so
that's cool. Zora does come off to me a little bit. I mean, she is kind of childlike because she doesn't fully understand her own sentience at this point, but she's incredibly intelligent, just not in the ways that we'd expect. Similarly to like other characters we've seen, like Seven, for example, who like is pulled out of the collective and like is incredibly intelligent, but not really socially, and certainly not in the situation that she starts into. And so for me, it makes sense for Zora to be like, I don't want to interrupt, but like something's wrong, you know?
I think Seven's a really good comparison here, right? Because in a couple episodes, when she's first reasserting herself as being an individual, she does show off like very childlike behaviors because her last like time being a human was as a kid, as Annika Henson, as like an actual like 6 or 7 year old or something. Yeah. So it makes sense, right? Yeah. But we also have like Data and Spock, who both also have challenges of social interaction, and both of them definitely mess up social stuff all the time. And you see them growing, but they're still able to be competent at their actual job stuff, right? Here, Zora's not even able to tell that there is something attached. It wasn't able to figure out that, Jet Reno hasn't moved in 3 days or anything like that. It's like, really?
A little bit.
All right. So the scene ends with them like finishing up the way that they're doing the work, which I want to say, I really thought that the effect of them like tapping on like holographic screens and then throwing them up into like this. Yeah, it was really cool. I liked that a lot.
That was neat. Yeah. Yeah. I like that. And they had the, like the ceiling opened up for that. Real quick. I forgot. Speaking of finally having something not open all the time, did you guys notice that the shuttle bay in Discovery, the doors were closed? Like for the first time this season? You know, that bothers me. That bothers me. They fly around, do everything with those goddamn doors open. Okay.
It's like people who fall asleep with their bedroom door open. I don't trust you. If you go to bed and your bedroom door is open, you fear no God. Like I don't trust you at that point.
You're inviting a serial murderer.
You're inviting some monster in the dark, and I don't trust you. I don't like that.
I have a guard Tuvix, so he protects me in the night. But I do sleep with my bedroom door open. My apartment door is obviously locked, but Tuvix will guard me in the night.
Yeah, you've got a dog to take care of you.
No, okay, so I'm with you.
Shuttle bay guard dog.
I didn't notice that the shuttle bay was closed, but I hope that they do that more often because it always being wide open is dumb.
I know, right?
Yeah. All right. So next scene is we're back on Booker's ship, and they're attached to the Discovery, and Reno is commenting on how she never knew that being kidnapped would be quite so boring. Tarka does this snarky, like, you're not kidnapped, you're just temporarily detained. And then Reno goes, potato. Loved it. Every scene with Tig Notaro is gold in this episode.
Yeah, I genuinely adore her. I don't know why. I just think she's awesome. Especially in this episode, and we'll talk about it later, but there's some real good moments with her specifically, but also just the fact that like, it's like, yeah, this is boring. I don't like this. Like, instead of like negotiating nothing just because she knows she can't do shit, she's like, that sucks.
Well, what did she want? Like to get tortured or something?
Yeah.
Excuse me, waterboarded?
I mean, I guess in her past experience, she's already been through kind of hellish shit before. And so now she's just like, well, this is lame.
Yeah, I mean, well, so remember, her ship was shot down right during the Klingon War, right? So she expected Klingon torture, Klingon abuse. Right. Klingons don't take prisoners, really. So in the end, they're going to kill her, kind of thing. But here, she's just sitting there, hungry, doing nothing. So I can see her being bored and snarky because that's very much in character.
And also trying not to be a threat, probably, and trying to like go under the radar a little bit, So.
There's just real quick. She reminds, excuse me, this whole thing reminds me of, oh my God. I tried to drink some lemonade and I'm almost killed myself. So it reminds me of this movie. I'm trying to find the name of it. It was Bette Midler, Danny DeVito, Judge Reinhold, and I want to say the girl that played Supergirl in Ruthless People. The wife is Bette Midler, and she's just completely like, you can't live with her. she gets kidnapped. And the people putting up the ransom, like the dude, the husband, he didn't want to pay it. He was so happy she was gone. And she was kind of like that. Like, she's supposed to be the kidnappee, and she gave the kidnappers all kinds of shit. Yeah, Helen Slater, she was the other one. So yeah, Reno just kind of made me think of that movie with how she was acting. So just a little aside there. 1986. I don't know if either of you were even born by then.
Nope.
That's 13 years back for me. I was 99. So baby.
It's the year before I was born. So, but yeah. So the next fun bit that we have in this same scene actually is this conversation between Booker and Tarka about reviewing the data that Ndoye had provided them and how that was Tensi's homeworld, and how clearly they understand what it's like to lose a world. So how could they do this to somebody else? Tarka goes, doesn't matter. We just need to get to the power core. Right? Totally ignoring the possibility that setting an understanding matters. The only point that he cares about is if Discovery manages to figure out how to get through the hyperfield, because they might be detected if they pass through the hyperfield with them or whatever.
Well, that's a pretty safe assumption. I don't know. Is it though? Discovery would be discovered for sure. Well, yeah, they would probably see that there's this little thing riding along.
Yeah, but they may not realize that there's something wrong, right? They may not know that that's something. Yeah, they don't know what it is. They may not think that that's anything out of the normal.
Right. To them, it's a wart.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or it's a normal shuttlecraft that's always attached there, right?
Or,
like they don't
or Gorch.
Like Voyager, the one that they never used.
Yeah, the Aero shuttle.
Oh, yeah.
So then we get the cool bit where she finally asks for some black licorice, which was a great Chekhov's gun because I didn't see it coming. I thought she just actually wanted candy to distract people, but okay.
Black licorice is like the worst tasting thing. I had it once and it was just...
I'm not a fan.
I'm a black licorice apologist. It's not
Really?
that bad. It's not my candy of choice, but I think it's tasty.
It's like chewing oil.
It's not that bad.
Yes, it is. It's horrible.
It's an acquired taste, Jay.
No, I'm not going to acquire that one.
Some people that's okay, but some people like things. I like it. It's good. It's okay. It's not my candy of choice, though. I prefer.
Yeah, it's psychopaths.
Taste. Just leave me alone.
They
I prefer something that doesn't taste like leaves.
What?
I hate Twizzlers too. I find them gross.
Oh God.
They're good.
Well, you just like everything, I guess.
All right, coming back from the Beyond Candy podcast. Okay, so we get this cool bit where we see that Reno takes out like a comm badge or like a part of a comm badge out from under her uniform, and then checks something, flips something, and slips it back under her into her sleeve, I think is what it was, really. And then Booker returns, giving her the licorice.
Why does she have that?
She says why she has it.
Okay, then I guess I forgot why that was.
Yeah, she says that as soon. Yeah, she says that she grabbed it as soon as she thought that Tarka might stun her.
Oh.
She says it, dude.
Okay.
I mean, I missed it too, so that's fine.
It was because it was probably so nonsensical and bullshit that it didn't sink in. Like, okay, yeah, just in case I get kidnapped now, let me grab this thing that just happens to be the one thing I need that's sitting right over here. I hate those. I really do.
Yeah, it's okay. I get that. Yeah. There's two things that my dad complains about when we watch, because we all watch Discovery together. One are those, and the second are like the whispery speeches that happen. And it's like he can't hear. It's like, why are we talking about our feelings when we have like 10 minutes to do this?
Well, don't worry. We don't talk about our feelings in this episode. We yell them.
Oh, we yell them. Oh, yeah.
All right. So we get the next scene is where they actually launch the .23s. They go out, they start spraying on the surface, and for a bit, nothing happens. And then suddenly tendrils start grabbing the .23s and they're gone. Then a bigger energy spike happens, and then a bigger fucking tendril goes and grabs Discovery itself. They try to pull against it. They can't. And they are pulled inside without any control, and they can't escape. Disables their weapons, their engines, and their shields.
I might have mislooked at it, but there was this nice little thing. Discovery had just started going to warp and got grabbed. Did I see that right? It looked like they were showing the effect of it just getting started before
I think so.
Getting yanked.
Yeah. Because I know Michael says maximum warp, get us the hell out of here, please. And then nope, psych. Just kidding.
And here's where the Abyss reference gets hard again, because it's just like their water tendrils that they used in that movie too.
Yes.
The effect is very similar.
It reminds me, oh God, this is only people my age will understand this, but I watched H2O as a kid, and there were water tendrils that happened when the mermaids got mad. That was a real thing. I remember that. That's what it reminded me of. Oh my God, that's such a deep memory. Anyway, people.
Susie, you should go. You should watch The Abyss at some point. It's a good classic sci-fi flick.
I shouldn't.
Yeah, I think it's from 84, so it's old, but it's good.
Yeah, I can look it up.
89.
89. Okay. Same year Michael Keaton's Batman came out. Yeah, that was a big year.
That's a very specific factoid.
Yeah.
That's very specific. Because do you like that specific Batman? Is it that?
Well, yeah, because I saw that movie 30 plus times that year.
Oh,
well, don't get me into that. Yeah,
that's fair. Beyond Batman.
So coming back from the Beyond Batman podcast. Okay, so Burnham gets a report as to where they are, and Linus, whom we see again, is we're inside of some unknown membrane orb. Life support works, engines, defenses, everything else is screwed. Right. Owoshi-kun then reports that they're inside of a solar system with 3 gas giants, all of identical mass and composition, and a star at the center that is somehow unique, right? Because it's stable. So here's what we can draw from that little scene.
Yeah.
10C made 3 gas giants to replace the one that was their home that they lost.
Did I miss something? I didn't catch if they made those. It just, what are the odds of 3 identical, gas giants in one system? Holy shit. They're building planets.
They're building gas giants, not even little terrestrial rocks. They're building big fucks. Yeah, no, It's very impressive.
And my favorite thing about this is it reminds me, I know it's not the same thing, or maybe it is, or maybe it isn't. It reminds me of the fluidic space in Voyager. What's the species called?
8472.
8472. Thank you. I always forget it, but yeah, it reminds me of the fluid without quite so much of the violence and angry alien organism ships, but it reminds me a lot of the whole fluidic space idea of where the fuck are we right now? What is this shit?
Well, that's the thing, right? When they're so inside of the hyperfield, right? It's definitely empty space. It's still space, but they get pulled into one of the atmospheres of one of these 3 gas giants. That's where we see my background, right? That cloud in the back is inside of one of those planets. But the fact that 8472 likes to live in essentially a liquid medium fluid in space makes them probably kind of the kind of people who'd be able to communicate with 10C, right? They've got a lot in common.
Yeah, that's possible. Never thought of that.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it until Susie
more
mentioned
advanced in the same way, or not in the same way, but this whole idea of this hugely advanced species and everything, and then 8472, they have organic ships and things like that, and it's different. It's a different type of advanced, but it's definitely up there. Yeah. And they challenged the Borg. So
right.
Yeah, that's a lot.
8472, they beat the shit out of the Borg.
Yeah. They said, all right, bet. But
and they also communicated
this.
They also communicated in a very unique way too, right? They didn't have a spoken word of any kind. They only used telepathy, right? So that's also a challenge to communicate with them, because they kind of take over your mind. Remember what they did to Harry Kim?
Oh, yeah. Poor Harry. So, why does he always get fucked over? Can he just be happy, please?
Because he's an ensign.
He's not an ensign. He's not. Anyway, I'm upset about it.
So the neat comparison in this one comes from Commander Nilsson, who says that they're like a bug in a jar, which is a very apt metaphor for where they are. And then, Burnham tells Christopher to get Stamets to just get everything working again, right? Get us back online. And this is the moment where I would have expected that they would have realized that Jet Reno is gone. She's the chief engineer. You'd think she'd be involved. Alas.
That's the thing about this episode that I'm like, I know why, and I get the plot device. I understand. But also, you think they might notice that because she makes so much noise all the time. Like she's snarky and she's just like, how would they'd be like, I feel like no one's been like mean to me in the last few minutes. Where's Jet? Like,
so there's another thing too, right? Like, and it's something that I've noted about Jet. She's almost always eating something. In almost every scene that we see her in, at some point, she's eating some kind of snack, right?
Yeah, me.
It's a lot like Dr. Harai. Dr. Harai, in every scene that we see him in, is also always eating on some snacks. I feel like those two are destined to be together. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, like, she's a canon lesbian and I'm protecting this one.
No, I'm kidding. But just the snackers should unite like that, right?
Snackers Club.
Okay, so back in one of the corridors, Ndoye contacts Booker. Obviously, their systems are all offline as well. Whatever 10C did to Discovery, they did to Booker's ship too. Cool. Tarka thinks that he's found the DMA's power source. It's enclosed in some kind of made up alloy, which is cool.
But he found it again, huh?
It's the one thing he seems to care about finding.
Yeah.
And Ndoye is scared. Everybody on the ship is scared, but like they're working to get through it and to communicate. Whereas Tarka is just focusing on how to transport the power source back onto Booker's ship. And Booker's like, no. You stop that shit right now. Get our systems back online first. And Reno is just watching it all going on too. Like you can clearly see she's looking over, like craning her neck to see exactly what everybody's doing. It definitely is illustrative of what's coming up in this scene.
Well, in a lot of hostage situations, isn't that kind of thing you try to do? You find that one person that you think you could maybe sway. And we've seen this several times in Star Trek. The only one I can really think of off the top of my head was Insurrection. Picard was in the turbo lift with the one, I can't remember his name, Gulna. And he was like able to kind of talk him into, switching sides. And I'm sure that's what Reno is doing now. Which one of these two can I...
Oh, I don't think there was ever a question of which one she could convince, right? Like she knows Booker.
She found out pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing, right? This is also where we see the confirmation that the licorice that she's been asking for isn't just for snackies. She's also using it for something. She takes a bit of it that's been chewed. Like it's not just a fresh bit, it's a chewed bit, puts it on the back of some part of the damaged comm badge and, trying to get it to work. Like she's tapping on it, trying to get something through. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so clearly, she's brilliant. She's got plans. She's not doing this for funds.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm. So then we go back to the bridge and Detmer reports that the orb that they are captured in has stopped moving. They're inside of the upper layers of one of the atmospheres, and there are hundreds of life signs all around them. They are being scanned. Every millimeter of the bridge is being scanned. Everything that they've tried from engineering is failing. Nothing is getting their systems back online. And then Saru calls Burnham that they should have a first contact discussion. And so Reese is left at the con.
Cool. Yeah. Not a lot special I can think of here.
No, not a lot. It was a solid scene. It just moved the plot. It was good. I think it's interesting though, that rather than like encounter Discovery in orbit where it might be safer for them, they are so confident of their technology and keeping Discovery harmless that they brought it literally into their home.
Well, yeah.
One of 3 of their new homes.
Yeah. It's just very confident.
You made multiple, but yeah.
You're right. It is. Well, I'm sure they're confident. Again, their technology far surpasses anything that they could ever dream of.
And I think that part of the reason that we're in the upper atmospheres of the planet is because it's all spacey and cloudy and mystery, and yeah, that comes up later. But and I'll talk about that when that happens because it's cool. But anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, the current theory, like real world theory for how gas giants function, is they mostly presume that they have some kind of like rocky center core. In some cases, molten. In some cases, it's like compressed carbon. Like there's a theory, if I remember correctly, that I believe it's Jupiter's core, if you dig down deep enough, is just like a diamond the size of the Earth, a singular diamond.
Cool.
Right?
Ooh.
That's cool.
Right.
Space is awesome.
Yeah. Wow. Space is terrifying and murder and death, but it's also beautiful.
Yes.
So the idea here that, they've got these 3 artificial gas giants and they're bringing them into the atmosphere and these are their homes is really cool. So, all right. Our next bit is Stamets explaining Zora's concerns to Culber about like her discomfort. Zora's running diagnostics, can't find anything wrong. Culber is taking on this task of like trying to help her troubleshoot her unease. It's a good scene. Adira there also works with the rest of the team. But all of them are a little like unable to help Zora, and to the point where Culber is like, okay, well, let's try the Trill board game again because that helped you in the past. And that makes sense too.
This, to me, the Zora thing and the behavior is maybe a little much to swallow. I could be wrong, but it just seems like that the computer is now maybe acting a little, I hate to say too sentient, but isn't really behaving the way that a computer would. Like, get your act together and do what you're supposed to do. And now it's just, she's changed ever since this whole sentient thing. Maybe less, oh God, what's the word I'm thinking of? Not less productive, but
reliable.
Okay. Yeah. I think, less reliable.
I mean,
well, so here's the thing that's weird for me, just real short. It's so, and this is a choice. It's not like a mistake that they're making, but it's a choice. When Zora as a character describes the things that she is noticing, it's, I feel these things going on. I see them going on, not sensors have detected this, or pressure sensors have detected this, or something like that. Right. No, it's, she treats Discovery as though it's a person's body rather than like the object that she inhabits. It's a choice that they're making for how they're presenting the character. I just think it's a little clunky in this situation because they've created a character that is so unreliable about it, right? Like, again, the comparison I keep bringing up is Rami from Andromeda. She is a sentient AI that inhabits the ship. She is part of the ship. She talks about they're clawing at on the skin of the ship. Cool, got it. It's the same kind of thing, but Rami is competent. Rami knows what she's doing. Rami was designed for this. Zora is just kind of like poofed out of nowhere, and she's having a lot of trouble. She needs coaching.
Yeah. And I think I kind of hope that's addressed in a way, but I think it is with that board game and everything. But I think that the reason that like she comes off as so, again, childish and sort of unfocused and unraveled is because of her sentience in relationship, not only to the crew, but to the ship itself being her. And so because she's sentient, like she's not just an AI that was created. She's an AI that is
emergent.
Yeah. And so they really don't know a lot about her, and neither does she. So it's going to be clunky. I think it's going to be rocky. And I feel like maybe in this scenario, not ideal, not great, but she's doing pretty well. I mean, as we see in the later in the episode, like with what she does with the scientists and everything and how they figure everything out, she's clearly still focused on the tasks that she needs to do, but she can't get past Tarka's bullshit to figure out like, oh yeah, there's a parasite on the ship. Because not expecting that, number one. And number two, he's arrogant and smart and an ass, and I hate him. But you bring up a good point, right? Clunky.
She wasn't programmed to do this, whereas Rami Andromeda from Andromeda Ascendant was, right? Like that's an AI purpose built to command the ship, or like Cortana purpose built to run the ship, right? Cool. I get it. It's just, for the only stories to come out of Zora are, I feel uncomfortable with this. I don't know how I feel about this. I feel, for being the only storylines that they're giving this character seems a little off, right?
Yeah,
like
I can see that.
The only things that they're exploring are her inadequacies, not her successes or achievements. So I don't know. I'm hoping that they'll do more with this as the show goes on. So
yeah,
all right.
I agree with that.
So our next scene is in the conference room with Rillick wondering about 10C and why they would be brought them in, scan them so much, but then not communicate with them. There's some speculation. Maybe they don't know how to talk to us. Maybe they're just trying to understand the technology before they do so. Tarina here is the smart one and goes, speculation is useless. Don't bother. Which shuts down Saru rather hard as he points out later in the episode.
Yeah, she was a little abrupt with him. It looked like he got his feelings hurt.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about bringing personal relationships into something like this. It's like, yeah, my planet's about to be destroyed in 15 hours. Maybe let's figure some shit out. I mean, she's logical about it. I mean, she's Vulcan. So it makes sense for her to be like, yo, hey,
never date a coworker.
That's a good point. Yeah, I'll say that one.
I'm just saying that I'm rewatching Enterprise right now, so I'm seeing how T'Pol presents like the stoicism of Vulcans in one way. Tarina does so in a very different way. Obviously, there's like 1,000 years between these characters, and there's been a lot of social upheaval on Vulcan since then, and Navarre since then. But I just really like how there's a development in their culture this way. No longer is it this sort of like curt, rude sort of approach to everything, because T'Pol in the first season of Enterprise was absolutely rude, right? Now we've got Tarina, who is like, she's dismissing it forcefully, but she's not rude about it. She's just making the point that no, this is the speculation.
There's nothing we can do about this, right?
Yeah, there's no way we can learn anything from speculation. Let's get back on task, right? She's just a lot nicer about it, which is an improvement as far as I'm concerned.
Agreed. Of course, Aru.
Yeah,
buddy.
Yeah. So we get to this cool note that Harai makes in the middle of this scene about how, like, well, maybe they're waiting on us to communicate our intent, right? Like, we told them that we were not a threat, but we didn't tell them why we're here.
Good point.
Yeah, absolutely. And Doye then goes, well, how can we be diplomatic if we're being held prisoner? Which is a fair point, but it's a little like, okay, so if you're being held prisoner, you don't want to be diplomatic. What do you do instead? What's the alternative? You start shooting? You can't. You have to be diplomatic in the situation.
Yeah, Ndoye, it's very typically Ndoye to me because, I mean, this is somebody who's been a soldier all her life, who's been a defender all her life. And so now having to come into this and suddenly be a politician about it, not really going to be a deal. From her point of view, especially since, the planet that she just spent so long trying to protect from, Emerald Chain, all that garbage won't exist in a few hours. So that's a problem. So I understand, more so than Tarka, I understand where Ndoye comes from in terms of this is ridiculous. We're being held prisoner and y'all are just like, oh, let's talk to it. I get it. I understand that she's apprehensive at the very least.
Well, look at this the same way that Jet Reno is captured. She's essentially a prisoner on Booker's ship. And the only thing she's doing is trying to talk her way out of it. She's not trying to short circuit the shields on Booker's ship. Probably can't. She's not trying to trick anybody into letting her out. She's literally just trying to diplomat her way through. And Jet Reno is not much of a diplomat, right? It's a very good comparison between Discovery as a prisoner of 10C and Jet as a prisoner of Tarka and Booker.
Yep.
And one other thing about Ndoye that I think it's part of the culture now of Earth to be this apprehensive and defensive, because when you think about all the times that Earth has been at risk from something, the Xindi, the Borg, V'ger, whale probe, Mars gets lit on fire by the synth. And yeah. So in that whole course, since space flight was invented by Zefram Cochrane, how many times do you think from that point when they made themselves known in the galactic neighborhood, from then until now, how many times do you think Earth has been threatened, even to the point of complete loss? Probably many, 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 many times. At this point, I would think that Earth has become a culture of we've constantly had some risk or calamity, possible loss of the planet, and now they're very untrusting of probably anything and everything.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does. Absolutely. Though I would argue that their better nature would be to be more trusting, not to become untrusting. The enlightened thing would be to not let fear dictate your actions. And I feel like Ndoye has made that mistake. Okay, so the next thing that comes up in this very same scene is actually, I thought, pretty clever. They start talking about how they're going to get across the message, and they start thinking like, why don't we offer a gift? Well, what could they possibly want? We know they want boronite. We know we have some boronite. Stamets collected it, so let's give it to them. We know that they want it.
Yep.
That's, yeah, okay.
They also not replicate boronite. Like, just
I don't think you can.
I think they mentioned that it's specifically not synthesizable.
Weird. I love Star Trek that way. They're like, yeah, we can't. Sorry. Like, we can make white bread, but we can't do this. Sorry, my bad. Like, we can't make a simple elemental structure, but we could make like ship parts and shit and like isolinear weapon case, but no boronite.
But they can't make the isolinium. The isolinium they still have to get.
No, I know, but because of course they do, because then you have to go on a fun adventure to get the isolineum, and then you have to play poker for it. But like, that's what I love about Star Trek, is that there is something like, they can replicate anything except maybe the thing that you need at the time, because now you have to go on an adventure, have fun. So I love that.
Beta Canon does a really good job of explaining why this is the case, right? Mm-hmm. So think of a replicator as being like a 3D printer or being like a printer, right? It has a certain resolution. It can print down to a certain size, and then it can chain them along, right? So if you want to make like a diamond, carbon's really easy. I can make a perfect diamond of any size with a replicator because it's easy. Just 6x6 meshes of fucking carbon. Cool. Yeah. However, making white bread, now you require a ton of carbohydrate chains. It's much more complicated than making a diamond. So that's where it requires a lot of energy to make food with a replicator. Cool. But it has a pattern. So it's going to just make bread. And every piece of white bread made by a replicator is going to be basically the same. Maybe a little bit of variation just based on the quality of the machine, but basically the same, which is why getting real bread made in a real bakery would be better, because it's imperfect, whereas it's not the same every time. Every piece of toast from a replicator is going to be exactly the same, roughly, right? Mm-hmm. So I get it. And maybe there are just some molecules that are just too complicated for even the replicator. In Beta Canon, they talk about nuts that Afrosians eat called capella nuts, I think is what they're called, but they're fatty oils or something, are just too complicated for replicator to get right. They'll taste correct, but they don't provide the nutrition that they should. So you got to get the real ones.
Oh, empty calories, something like that.
No, it's more like, so their biology requires this oil that they can't produce themselves, the same way humans need vitamin C. Right. So they need to eat the real nuts. They can't survive off of just replicated ones, even though they taste fine. They don't actually have the nutrients that they need.
Gotcha. Okay.
No, and I like that. I mean, I like that not everything is like instantly fixed. I mean, because, if it were, then it wouldn't be Star Trek. I feel like if you had something where like, I don't know, but you know what I mean? Just like if you had everything like at your fingertips, it wouldn't make a good show. So like, it makes sense to me, but I love it. Like, I love that part of like, there's certain shit that we can't make adventure.
Yeah. I was actually kind of worried about that going into season 3. Was that they're going to be so far into the future that nothing's going to be a challenge. Just replicate whatever you want at any time.
But so I'm glad with like the comm badges and the like programmable matter, which is a little tiny bit like, okay. But like,
I like there's still some challenges. There are things that they can't make.
Yeah. There's like still limitations to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I thought that the whole discussion about like the whether it's okay to offer a gift, right? Whether it's appropriate was a good discussion because, some cultures gift giving is perfectly cool. And other ones, it can be kind of like, well, now I got to give you something, or you're not supposed to give me something. You're the guest here. I have to give you something, right? Like there is intricacies to this.
That's why I hate when you decide that on Christmas, no one's giving anyone anything. And then somebody breaks that truce, gets someone a gift, and now everyone's in the room is just feeling guilty. Yeah. It's kind of like that. Like here's your gift. Shit. Now I got to get you something.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, but I like that they talk about like just, this gift could be perceived strangely because and I think this happens in Lower Decks at one point where like they express gratitude for something and the alien's like, how dare you, and starts firing at them because it's true. I mean,
it was the gratitude crystal, right?
The gratitude
crystal. They instead showed like a piece of wood or a log or something, and that's like an insult or something.
Yeah. Oh, it was awful. And so that to me, I like that is a conversation that they have. What I really love about this episode is just the conversation that they have about interacting with a culture they do not understand in any way and going about it in a way that's peaceful and calm and submissive, but at the same time trying to figure it out. I mean, it's real life linguistics in some ways and in some parts of this episode. And I commend the team for that because and we'll talk about it later, but it's awesome.
This Borgnite is not kosher, so we will destroy you.
Stop. Not kosher. The 10C. Oh my God.
So they end up beaming the Borgnite right into the membrane of the orb that's surrounding them. And that seems like a pretty solid idea.
I like they call it a membrane. It's just, I don't know. The idea
sounds
that it's
biological.
Like organic yeah. Which is going back to that whole fluidic space thing for me. It's just very...
Well, you've got to have something in your language to relate it to.
Yeah.
You can just call it the thing, membrane.
The border, whatever it is. But the membrane makes sense. It's almost like a giant cell that's holding them captive, especially because we see in a bit that these things are massive.
So back on Booker's ship, Booker can't get systems back online. Tarka says, don't worry about it. The systems will come back once we get out of the orb. We just need to weave the orb and then we'll be fine. Yeah.
So much.
He's so slimy. So Reno takes her first shot at trying to like divide the two of them more. She asks like, why are you teaming up with Tarka? He's a couple cherries short of a sundae, which I thought was pretty nice.
Love her.
Mm-hmm.
And then Booker finally tells someone else why Tarka's so obsessed. He's trying to return to someone. Right. He made a promise to go back to someone. So that's the first time any of our characters other than Booker has understood Tarka's motivation for this. And immediately she's like, he's dealing with loss. So are you. That's why he's manipulating you. Duh. Which was very nice. We also finally got an explanation for why Cleveland Booker's name is Cleveland Booker. Yeah. It's a title. It's like the Dread Pirate Roberts of Star Trek at this point.
I love it. I love that. He seemed so proud. I don't know. I love Book. I know Book has made bad choices, but I love Book.
Isn't he Great. Booker the Fifth or something?
Cleveland Booker the Fifth. What a king. I love him. It's like, yo, maybe you should stop. Once I have a bunch of Steves in my family. There is a Steve the Fifth who is like 1 year old. I'm like, at this point, stop it. Just find a new name. Any new name in the English language would be fantastic because I know like 5 Steve. They're all in the same exact family. I'm like, hey, Steve, how are you, Steve? I'm tired of it.
That's obnoxious.
It's obnoxious.
Two stories for you. I'm technically also a junior, right? Like my dad and I have different middle names, but we are both Renzo, right? Yeah. So growing up, somebody else, Renzo, come look at this. Which one? All the time.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Super, super annoying sometimes. But the better story is this. I have cousins. I have 5 girl cousins. They are sisters to each other's. Every single one of them has a different name, but they all have the same first part of their name. They're all Maria Jose, Maria Isabel, Maria Fernandez. Like every single one of them has Maria as the beginning part of their name. Right? Oh yeah. Man, when families get real hardcore about like naming themes, it's so annoying. It's so silly.
My favorite ones are like the families that use like flowers or months or like the same first letter. So like everybody has the same initial. Stop.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm also never giving my children the middle name curse because I have that. And my parents both have that and decided, you know what? If we suffer, so should she. And I'm tired of it.
So we get this cool bit where Brino explains that she understands loss, just like I was saying before, right? Her wife had died. Then when she's stuck on the Hiawatha, there was an ensign who was horribly disfigured and burned and begged Reno to just let me die. But she kept him alive because of the colors of his eyes, right? And she realized that only after he actually passed away on her. Mm-hmm. She's trying to relate to Booker that, sometimes we need to let go of things. We can't just rage against everything, which is essentially what he's been doing since the destruction of Quajan. And she's trying to relate that that's also what Tarka's doing to try and get back to, his romantic interest.
Well, I mean, that's pretty convenient for her to say because, I mean, Cleveland, this is fresh to him. His loss is, I think, a lot more recent. He hasn't had near the kind of time that Reno's talking about. I really thought that for Reno, it was kind of dude, just forget about it and move on. I did, but it's too soon for him.
I feel like it's less of that and more of her trying to say, don't make the same mistakes that I did when I was grieving. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to get you out of the cycle because the mistakes that I made cost one person his life, or rather caused one person to suffer. You have caused a lot more suffering than that, I think that she's trying to maybe tell him that like, I made mistakes. Like you can't, I'm not asking you to forget about it necessarily, but there are healthier ways to move through grief than to use your anger and your frustration with the universe and the inevitability of mortality to keep somebody alive or try and save people when you're just running in blind and you don't really have a plan. You do, but it's you don't consider other people. And I think that that's the thing that she's trying to stress is that like you're grieving, you want to solve your grief, but think about everyone else's grief. Think about everyone else's problems if we don't solve this the right way. And I think that's important. I think it's important for her to mention that, even though, I mean, it is technically like a police tactic, to like try and just like, I've been through things too,
Right.
But I think it's important. I think it's important that she's like, hey, yo, this is, believe me, been there. Don't do this shit.
I think you're completely right, Susie. I think that's exactly what she's trying to do. I don't think she's trying to be like, just move on. Just let it go. Like it's not like a song from Frozen. The point here is really, you have lost something. There are ways to get through it. Let me show you, work with me to help you get through this. But what you're doing is allowing for you to be manipulated by Tarka, right? Which is clear. So open your eyes to that. And then Booker goes, I see what you're doing. You're trying to divide us. That's what you're doing. And her response is, just because that's true doesn't mean I'm wrong, which is also a very good observation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if she had denied that and been like, well, I'm just trying. Nope. Because she's like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to do.
No shit.
Also get the stop. Like she's just like, yeah, absolutely. Go figure. Get away. Like run.
Yep. And then we get that last little bit where Booker asks like, hey, when will we be free of this orb thing? And Tarka's just like, soon. Great. Thanks, bro.
Oh, I hate him. slimy bastard. I don't know about y'all. I don't want him to like, no, I do want him to die. I don't know how. Wow. I don't know if I don't want it to be slow, but I do. I think that maybe die. I don't like him.
But he's very, very headstrong on his mission on getting home.
He's a selfish prick.
Well, but he's a selfish prick.
I know, but
and we learn more about that later in the episode. But
but does he deserve death for
at least life imprisonment somewhere? Please, I hate him. Especially if anyway, we'll talk about that.
Okay. Just leave him with 10C. Let him be in a work camp for 10C, mining boronite for them.
That'd be good. That'd be good.
All right.
That'd be special.
So our next scene is Saru reporting that the boronite's away, but they've done nothing. Ndoye tries to be like, listen, I respect how you've adapted to the situation, but you have to accept when you've hit a wall, right? Like as a soldier, I know what it's like to hit a wall. You need to understand what it's like to hit a wall. And Burnham's like, once upon a time, I believe that there were no walls at all. We could do anything. That's not true. I now know there are walls, but this ain't it. We haven't hit it yet, which was a good response to Ndoye trying to pressure her into making some kind of rash decision. So I liked that. That's when Zora reports to the crew that there's a change in the membrane near the shuttle bay, and down they go.
Oh, it's awesome.
It's a really cool scene. It's what's behind me here.
Yeah.
You can actually see that the shuttle bay doors are open and they can see the clouds of this upper atmosphere on this gas giant. And something just kind of swims by, hangs out, looks at them for a bit. And it's real big. It's real big.
It's real big. Yeah. I don't know why, but it reminded me of like, it had a very like Pacific Rim, like monster vibe. Also just like very, very different space whale.
I was kind of thinking Cloverfield.
Yeah. And I like the idea of distant alien species just sort of being like big fish with big old eyes, and a lot of them. I think
there's always a bigger fish.
Yeah, I think it's neat. I don't know. I just really love seeing like sci-fi take It's like, this is an alien we've never seen before. It's going to look like a fish. It's going to have a lot of eyes. And it's going to be fucking massive. Enjoy. And I love that. I really like
that. One that it struck me as looking like was actually the Rachni Queen from Mass Effect.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see that.
But yeah, either way, it looked cool. We don't get a good look at them ever in this episode. At no point do we really get to see them. It is always through the clouds. But Burnham concludes at the end of the scene that seems like they've decided to say hello. And that's a good observation, obvious, and it is hopefully a good suggestion towards more comms, because comms are good. This
is a weird thing to hope, but I kind of hope that we don't see 10C
really
in full, because I feel like that's kind of part of the wonder of it and the weird, like, I mean, especially with how this episode ends, et cetera, but like, I just feel like it would be cool if we just saw a shadow of the giant fucking being that we know nothing about, and then they figure it out, and then it stops, and then we move on. And then the series, but I mean, at the same time, like, it would be cool, but I think that the mystery of this giant thing that we know nothing about, like, to turn it into like a fully fledged thing that we can see in its entirety might take away from some of the sort of wonder of it, if that makes sense.
It does.
And, can they leave the gas giant? Are we able to part the gases in any way? Like, we don't know that, and we're not going to be able to communicate that with them very easily. And so I feel like it would be cool if they just sort of like helped a little bit, made some big whale noises, and then descended back into the gas. And,
I can see that. Weave the I get your point. I'm okay with weaving the mystery, right?
I would like it either way, but I think it would be cool. Again, I think it'd be really cool if they just made some blue whale noises and sort of descended back into the planet and never to be seen again. And then we move on. Season 5. Woo! I think so.
We start this first contact scene now with her eye scanning it and being like, they've got eyes, they can read pheromones, but no, they can't find any ears or electrical sensors. Their brain is wildly unusual, so universal translator is useless. Don't know what to do here. And then Zora reports that, it's releasing a mist of organic molecule clusters. And what's the composition? It is 25% joy, 22% sadness, 17% peacefulness, 14% irritation, 12% surprise, 10% fear.
Ooh.
I like that. I really like this.
It's a hell of a mix.
Yeah.
I like the 25% joy. That's nice. It's like, okay, cool. They don't want to kill us immediately, but also,
well, so that's the thing.
Creature.
That's the thing that I thought was really interesting, because I had to go back and actually like listen to the percentages, because I was curious. I was like, okay, so 25% joy, but 22% sadness. Those balance roughly. Then it's 70% peacefulness, 14% irritation. Okay, so those kind of balance each other too. And then
wait a minute, hold on.
Isn't peacefulness and irritation
over 100%?
I don't know.
Good question.
I didn't actually add it.
I don't think so.
Oh, you were quoting actual numbers.
No, I am. I'm quoting the actual numbers.
What? Well, but then, that's definitely over. Okay, well, never mind.
I'm far, I can't do that. Don't ask me questions.
Right, yeah.
I can add 2 + 2. That's about it.
Okay, and then the last two are 12% surprise and 10% fear, right? So fear and surprise also kind of tend to balance each other out, right? So I would say that the perception, if you take that as like a whole from those 6 elements, is like they are on the friendlier side of being ambivalent, right? Like they're kind of neutral, but they're on the friendlier side in every single one of those pairings, but not by a lot.
I feel like this is their way of saying, hey, yo, what the hell? Like, it's like just kind of being just like, it's like, who the hell are you and why? And the idea, I mean, obviously they know that, like, having scanned them, I presume that they would have gotten some inkling that, like, oh, this is the thing that destroyed our mining thing. Yo, thanks. Why are you here now? That, like, I really like the idea of it just spraying mist and like lighting up. Being like,
and Big J, I just did the math on it. It definitely adds up to exactly 100%.
Sweet.
Holy shit. Okay. All right.
I mean, I feel like that would be something that the producers would be like, hey, yo, let's not fuck this one up, because they will drag our asses over the coals for that one. Like, if it had been like 101%, everybody would be like, oh, you failed, you fucked up.
That would have been the only takeaway from the episode.
No, I could see like the YouTube videos of like, Discovery producers can't do math, season 5 canceled. I can see it. Can feel it.
Don't worry. There's already like dozens of channels on YouTube whose entire existence is already like, I heard this rumor that Discovery's already canceled, and it was canceled 2 seasons ago. So this new season isn't even real. Right? It's like, bros.
It's so fucking stupid.
It's everywhere.
Continue. I'm sorry.
And there's already ones going about like, oh, Picard canceled after season 3. They canceled it. They know that season 2 and 3 are bad, so it's canceled. It's like, guys, it was planned to be 3 seasons. Stop.
Not to be this. Like, Sir Patrick Stewart is old. Like, he's getting a little too old for like action stunt stuff and like Star Trek.
Film as much as you can while you got him.
This stuff with the camera. No, but just like let him rest. He agreed for a few seasons because he wanted to come back and do it. And
he agreed for 3 seasons exactly. Yeah. So
and people are the people that are getting upset about it only being 3 seasons. Like, well, he's in his 80s.
We should talk about that during our Picard review.
Yeah,
we'll get back to that. Sorry, we'll get back to that.
Beyond
We've been on this an hour. We've just gotten past the first act.
I know. We really need to continue. I'm sorry.
So we get this cool thing where the 10C flashes like a light pattern. Then it flashes the same exact light pattern again. And then Harai goes, maybe the hydrocarbons provide the emotional context to the message in the light pattern. So they should send the light message back. And they do. And the thing gets bored and swims away. As you do.
I like that. They're like, we'll let them figure it out. It's just like, we'll give you some time. I love these things. They're like big bug whales with many eyes and no fucks to give. I like them. I think they're cool.
Yep. And then at this point, we get this, they start talking about how like they have the communications now. They just need to figure out how to communicate, right? They need to decipher what the light patterns mean. And that's going to take some time. And Doye goes, this is going to be a long process. Harai agrees, which it makes sense. So they start relaying the pattern and start studying it. And then Ndoye's like, this is going to take too long. Let me go contact Booker, which is dumb. Like, Ndoye's actions here are very dumb.
Ndoye makes me upset. And it's not because I don't understand. It's just because with Tarka, it's very much like, oh, you're just a selfish bitch. Like, I don't like you. I hate. He's the cis white man in this particular, like, that I'm just like, men. But he just gives me that sort of selfish vibe. But Ndoye just like clearly is terrified and is not necessarily being manipulated, but is not willing to deal with like all of this little lovey-dovey, like, oh, let's try and make friends with that. Like, I totally understand why, but it's dumb. It's stupid.
Well, it's not for no. So my biggest issue is with her actions being contradictory, right? Like, remember in the last episode when she meets with Booker in the hallway, she's like, doing your method must be a final resort, or your whole thing gets called off. I will turn you in, right? Here, she's like, she's not even giving them like time to decipher. It's clearly working. They're making progress. Just give it time.
It reminds me a lot of Nan in that episode that she was in recently, where she is more quick to be like, we need to do this last resort thing. Michael's like, no, absolutely not. Mm-hmm. And so I think that they sort of complement each other in that way as well. But I think that Ndoye for sure is like, it has to be a last resort, but like, I decide when it's a last resort, which is selfish. I feel like that's the problem I have a lot with these characters that are trusted, like with last resort things, especially if you're not like, it's like, do you really have enough confidence in yourself as not a captain of this ship to be like, I know when it's last resort time? No, you don't. Go sit in the ready room and wait for them to tell you to do shit. I'm tired of this. You're not part of this ship. You're not part of this crew. You're a delegate. You are not part of the no. So I think that's what bothers me the most about Ndoye.
And honestly, I don't think she's even all that qualified to be a delegate for this stuff, right? Like,
well, yeah, but I mean, she's only gotten for Earth, really. So that's
fine. But she's being included in the actual first contact communications attempts, right? Cool. Yeah. What's your background now? Are you an exolinguist? Like exoanthropology? Like what is your background here? Like, what exactly do you do here, lady? Right? And as much as I respect
her job,
right? As much as I respect her bringing like a military perspective, which is probably why she's included, just a different perspective, she's not adding anything in these conversations.
No value.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I think that because of her military background and because of not only her military background, but her offensive military background, like the idea that, I mean, they have had to be on the defense of Earth for a very long time, and it's been mostly active up until very recently. And so she's not used to this idea of like, oh, diplomacy works. Like it's because diplomacy really probably didn't work on Earth for a very long time.
No. Nope.
And so I get it. I understand where she's coming from. But having seen what Discovery can do and what Discovery can fix, for her to immediately be like, oh, yeah, I know when last resort time is. It's now. Even though they've been there for what, 3 hours?
Well, and that takes me back to I still think that the whole Earth over 1,000 years, multiple times being at some kind of risk or jeopardy.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I just think that at some point it finally breeds that attitude of we don't have time for this, and it's probably in the background thought in Earth's history since being part of all of this. I'm sure that's been taught. Well, Earth was at risk of being conquered or destroyed 30 times in the last 1,000 years or more than that. So I'm sure there's probably a lot more trepidation happening here, which doesn't help that you've got a military person and not a diplomat on top of all that. So that's my take.
Yeah, no, that's fair. All right. So we cut back to Booker's ship. They're watching what's going on in the shuttle bay. Tark is like, it doesn't matter. And Ndoye contacts them and is like, hey, the translators don't work. Communication has to start from scratch, right? They've got only 12 hours, which is a very short timeline. No disagreements there. But Tarka thinks that, he's got a plan. He's going to ignite a plasma stream off one of the nacelles, burn a hole in the 10C orb, and then use a repulsor tractor beam to push them out that hole and escape away, right? No engines required, and then we're good. Okay. So you're going to light a
thing on that?
Go ahead. Yeah. You're going to light a fire in someone else's atmosphere? Bro, we saw how that went in Shockwave with Archer. You kill everyone.
Yeah.
Scary possibility.
Dumbass. The thing is, he's not a dumbass. He knows what he's doing. He just doesn't care.
Yeah, he doesn't care. That's exactly it.
Right.
Fucker. Asshole. I don't like Parker. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so then Ndoye protests.
Red in a second.
Ndoye protests and is like, feeding you information was one thing, but this is like sabotage. This is a betrayal. No, lady, it was a betrayal at the very beginning. Ma'am, there's no way that this wasn't a betrayal from the first time you agreed to help them.
Ma'am, this is a Wendy's. Sorry. I don't know why.
Ma'am, this is Starfleet. We don't betray people here.
Yeah, it's just real. She's like, wait, I betrayed Discovery, but you're doing the same thing, and it's not how I wanted it to go. It's like, yeah, welcome to life. How do you not know this is going to go badly? Anyway.
It's okay as long as it goes the way I want it to.
Exactly. It's dumb.
So here's where Booker is used now to manipulate Ndoye, where he's like, Tarka this will stop the DMA. No one else needs to die, but we can't do it without you. Right. And then she caves and agrees. Right. Tarka would not have managed to convince Ndoye to do it. It had to be Booker. That's part of why Booker is a necessary tool for Tarka.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love that.
Cool. Back in the shuttle bay, they start looking at the light pattern again. They start figuring it out. Essentially, they determine that it's a visual representation. They lay it out in 3 dimensions. They start layering it with the composition of the molecules, and they essentially figure it out. It's a really cool scene. It really does remind me of Arrival. Like this whole translation encounter reminds me of the movie Arrival a lot.
It does.
I really like.
Me too.
I really, really love. There's something to be said for the amount of work that went into this episode and went into the translations and went into not only the logistics of it, but the visual effects and just the way that it's figured out. It's amazingly cool. I really, really love when Star Trek brings other disciplines into it, linguistics and all of these different things. And I just think it's really, really beautiful and it's a really unique thing because I don't think any of us knew how you were going to translate any of this, but to use the planet pheromones and then come back and then understand the mist and the light pattern and it's so cool. It's so cool. It's everything I love about Trek.
Exactly. That's why. So for me, this is one of my favorite episodes of Discovery ever. I'm not even sure if it's not my favorite. It might be my favorite Discovery episode, period. Because I think that the way that they handled this first contact is great. It's one of the best in all of Trek ever.
If there's any way to define what is Star Trek, it's this scene of all the teamwork that went into this whole thing. Everyone had to use their part of their skill and profession to figure this out.
Yep. That's why Burnham calls down Detmer, Nilsson, and Christopher, people with very different perspectives. And they all start talking about like assumptions that they may have already made. We need to examine them, take a step back, reapproach it. And Nilsson's like, well, maybe it's not just a language. Maybe it's like music. Maybe it's like a piano piece that like the words evoke or the sound evokes emotion. That's why you have the hydrocarbon chains, right? Saru then brings up like the molecule itself and thinks it's like an encryption chain, right? So it requires a key. Is the key in the light pattern? Okay, well, layer it on top. And that's where they start putting this together, right?
Yeah.
It's just a really good example of everybody providing a different perspective and figuring it out.
Yeah.
Zora.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I also wanted to mention that I think that this is a really good. Like, I feel like there's sometimes in Star Trek where I watch it and I'm like, okay, well, why do we need xenolinguistics if we have universal translators? Why do we need xenobiologists when we can scan everything? This is a very good way of saying all of these disciplines in Starfleet, prepare them for this shit. Yeah. This is worlds unexplored. This isn't just diplomacy with Klingons that we've done before. This isn't just, this is completely new. And they're going in completely blind like they had to do when Starfleet was first established. I think it's fucking awesome.
Well, and
I love it.
Here's the other part. You don't always have the luxury of Spock doing a mind meld with these damn things. So you better figure it out for yourself.
No.
Like we said last episode, though, they should have brought a Betazoid to this whole mess. It might have helped.
That's true. That would have been useful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
we don't know.
That's assuming that you could read, because their brains are complicated. Their brains aren't the same human brains. So Betazoid, in theory, would it hurt them? Would they even be able to tap into that? Are they telepathic? You never know.
No idea. But they should have brought a Betazoid anyways, though, right? Like that could have been a means of communication. Maybe they only relied on telepathic communication, sort of like how 8472 does, right?
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
They didn't know, but it doesn't seem like they brought one. All right, so finishing up this scene, the lights start corresponding to certain parts of the molecules themselves, and Burnham tells Zora to begin the analysis, tell us what the message is, right? So when we cut to a different scene, we're in sickbay. Culber is talking to Zora. The sine wave is stabilized. Zora's calmed down. The game helped. She can't understand why she feels so distracted, but she notes that it happened around the same time as a replicator malfunction that Jet Reno had fixed. Well, maybe Reno knows what's going on. So Culber tries to call Reno. Doesn't answer. Zora reports on that Reno isn't engineering specifically. And then Culber's like, well, she's probably trying to help Stamets break them out of the orb. So let's go talk to her. Great.
So again, suddenly now there's no one around that notices she's gone. Come on.
It's so weird to me.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird point.
I get that she hasn't been around for any action on the ship for forever until this episode, but
we have to presume she's there. We just don't see her, right?
Of course, if she's there, I'm not quite buying this whole no one noticed thing, because this is engineering. Now, to me, it seems like this is the one place that you would not have a bunch of people around all the time. There's a lot of these places and parts of the ship that at particular times when the plot wants it to be, there's no one in there, like literally no one in there. And if she is the chief engineer, which I don't know if it was ever made exactly clear still now after 4 seasons who the chief engineer of the damn ship is, you notice these things.
Well, there was a bit in the last episode where there literally was nobody in engineering, right? Like there was no one there. She sent everybody out to go fix replicators, and there was not one person left in the room, which is nuts to me. The idea of leaving nobody at the warp core seems nuts.
Yeah.
But I do want to point out though, right? Like Battlestar Galactica went on for 4 seasons, almost 80 episodes of show, and we never once saw the chief engineer of that ship.
Nope.
Not even once.
Never did.
Right? We only saw engineering, I think, twice, and that was when they were clearing some cracks in the hull from engineering, right? Like, you can do a sci-fi show and never show these people, right? But you can't.
Yeah.
But it's really awkward in this situation where they're having where they need the chief engineer, and yet who? Where?
Here, I think the point you may be making, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're going to go there, then there need to be people there. If you're going to have a scene there, it needs to be realistic. It can't be an empty place. That's what gets me is there's probably no other, if I'm going to relate this to the real world, at what point in anything that has engineering, whether it's a cruise ship, military, anything like that, at what point would it be okay or not a bad thing to have nobody in freaking engineering?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it makes sense for because again, I'm not in the industry, so I don't know exactly how, that kind of filming work works. And it may be more useful to have not a ton of people in a certain scene, not a ton of people there, but it feels off to me. It feels off mostly that no one notices that Jet's gone, because Jet is a pretty obvious presence most of the time.
Exactly.
Because it's Tig Notaro, but yes. But also, just the idea that I don't smell licorice today. Where is she? Where's she
I don't hear crunching. Where are the snacks?
There's no corn chips around. What the fuck? And no one's been mean to me in a minute. What's going on? Or
even more important, right? Like Stamets even says in the when they actually end up in engineering that I've been looking for her all day to help me out of this orb. Where is she? Nobody thought to be
somehow it takes hours.
Computer, what is Jet Reno's location?
Yeah, and then it tells him that she's in engineering and he's in engineering and he doesn't see her anywhere. So there's something fucking wrong. Yeah. Right. It beggars belief to me.
It doesn't help with the suspension of disbelief a little bit. It doesn't help. I understand why it's there. But I understand that in certain shows and in screenwriting, sometimes you just got to do shit. Sometimes it advances the plot. There's a certain need for that character to be where they are, and you just have to do it and go with it.
Yeah, and move on with life.
And I'm not a screenwriter, but it just feels weird. It feels weird that no one notices that.
In trying to rationalize it, right? The best I can come up with is everybody was so busy doing other things while Discovery was involved in this high stakes thing that nobody bothered to notice, which I get it. That would make sense if everything on the ship was working well. You don't need your engineering to fix anything. I could see them getting overlooked, right? However, their weapons are down, their warp is down, their impulse is down, their shields are down. They're having problems with the ship. It makes sense that somebody would need their engineer or one of their best engineers.
Made more sense if it were an ensign or even a lieutenant.
Yeah, if it was Adira that had been kidnapped, right? I could see that being ignored far easier. It's just
but Adira also doesn't have that same. Adira would just be okay, kidnapped. Awesome. Cool. This is fine. Yeah. And I feel there's a reason that they specifically use Jet Reno. I'm happy Jet Reno.
I love that it's Jet Reno. I think Jet Reno makes a much better story for telling this too, right? And I think Adira would just figure out a way to hack Booker's ship, right? Take the thing apart from inside the. Yeah. But my point is, if it was an ensign like Adira that went missing, it would be easier to overlook than a senior engineering officer, whether she's the chief engineer or not.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So next scene is we're back on Booker's ship with Reno getting more licorice and asked for it to be handed to her, and she grips his wrist and pulls him in so that she can talk to him. And she tells him that she's been watching Tarka's calculations. If you rip out the DMA power source the way he's doing it, the DMA the hyperfield will implode. It'll destroy everything inside of the system. Everyone will die, and the subspace rift will still be left near Earth and will kill everyone there almost as fast as the DMA would. Booker presumes automatically that's just a ploy, a trick. But she tells him, go look at the math. Even if you don't understand the math, look at his face when he tries to explain it to you.
Yeah.
That's a very, very, very good thing. It's a good tell. Because he's not good at that. He's not good at bluffing, I've noticed with Tarka. I mean, he's arrogant and he's brilliant, but he's not a good liar.
Yeah.
You said Tarka's not a good liar?
Yeah, Tarka's not.
Well, I mean, he is in some ways, but I think that when it comes to him not being confident He'll do his best, but most of the time he's confident. So when he's not confident, he's like, shit, this is fine.
Well, and she knows that now's the time. Read the body language. Yep. Read the room, look at the face. You're not supposed to understand the math, but when you start asking questions about it, then he's going to just be all like agitated. Oh, yeah.
So next scene, we cut back to the shuttle bay. Zora believes that she has decoded the message. It's basically a cipher where every time a hydrocarbon is called for, it represents a certain letter, and she's created essentially an alphabet. It's essentially a bridge language is what it's called, which is a reference to something real, like an organization in this century called MEDI created one called Linkos. It's supposed to be like the foundation for first contact. It's like a basic language that can get across mathematical concepts so that you can establish the foundations of like communications. Cool. They even reference it in the episode. Really sweet. And they believe that the reason why 10C is doing this is because 10C's own language is too complex for us. So they're teaching us a baby language. Cool. Perfectly exactly what it was in line with what I was saying last episode or the episode before, like of the podcast. Mm-hmm. I was saying that it's on 10C to make the effort to communicate with us if they are so much more advanced. And they did. So I'm very happy to see it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So once they can read things, they start. So they start having Zora create a response, right? Now that they're doing so Zora is given access to replicators so they can build their own molecule. And then Zora can project the lights. And they start trying to figure out what message they should send, right? Tarina has been, this is also when we see Saru talking to Serena about her dismissal of his earlier ideas. Talking to Burnham about it. Saru and Burnham are talking about Tarina's dismissing of his ideas earlier. And Burnham goes, it's just a matter of logic above all. Vulcans tend to overcompensate in public, especially when it's close relationships. Sarek did this all the time, drove her crazy, etc. And here we get another bit of like culture context being provided to somebody, making the actions that they encountered make more sense.
That's true. And I also really like that it's sort of a similar scene of like, you know, a man going to like a friend of his that's like a woman and they're like, why the hell did she do this? Like, oh, it's just a girl thing. It's fine. And like, that's what it felt like to me a little bit, but space, you know what I mean? Of like, you know, why hasn't she texted me back? It's like, I don't know. Maybe she's just like on her period or something. You don't know. And like, that's exactly what life is like. And I feel like it was very much Saru going to Michael being like, what the hell?
It's just delightful. In this episode, they've done these little microcosms of the bigger story, right? So like the Jet Reno being kidnapped is the same as Discovery being held in the orb, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Saru getting this like problem communicating with Tarina is the same as Discovery and the Federation having trouble communicating with 10C, right? These little microcosms, really cool little parallels. Big fan of that. It's
done really well, and I think the pacing is perfect. I think that the pacing is really, really, really perfect for it, especially because not only do we have Book and Tarka, we have Discovery, then we have, you know, Stamets and then we have Saru and Michael having their little moments, and you know, it's all of these things that are so. I really think that the pacing is just really, really perfect for it, and this is one of my favorite episodes of Trek maybe ever, especially Discovery specifically. But I love this episode.
Hop back to Booker's ship. Booker confronts Tarka about the information that Reno had given him and immediately starts yelling about it, right? Like, we can't do this if we're just going to ruin Earth. And then his response is essentially, even if it collapses the hyperfield, it would take 3 minutes. So we and Discovery can escape. It'll be fine. And Earth would have a month before the void impacts it. So there'd be plenty of time to figure out a solution on the other side or to evacuate, right? Like,
yeah, let's just evacuate Earth.
Yeah, everything's fine. Just let me get that power source. Let me get that power source. Let me get that power source.
Absolute power corrupts, absolutely. And
it's his only obsession.
Yeah, I hate him. I hate him so much. I was hoping that after the last bullshit with him firing at it, like not getting it and realizing it was on, I was hoping that would dim him just slightly. No, he's just more crazy. He's just more of a dick, and I don't like it. I hate him. I'm excited to see what terrible thing befalls him next.
Oh God.
Yeah. So the scene ends with like Booker being like, you know what? Fuck it. No, I'm telling Ndoye to stand down before we can start something. Before you start something that's worse. And then Tarka is told to step away from the computers. Tarka replies, I'm not going to do that. And then he draws his phaser, and then the security field comes up around Tarka and bashes Booker back into the view screen. Right.
That was kind of cool.
Which to me shows that like Tarka knew at some level that at some point he's going to stop believing me. And I hate him for that. I hate him so much. I
admit, I didn't see that coming, right? Like I figured that he would probably just pull a phaser on him and stun him or something. I didn't think that he would hack the whole ship to do his bidding this way, though it fits much better than what I had originally thought. So I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Cool.
I mean, I didn't like it, but
no, yeah. But you liked the choice from the screenwriting perspective.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, so back in the shuttle bay, 10C return, and they send the new pattern. They send it to Harai's holopad. He sees it with a bunch of equations. And they all equal 9. So it's just like 5 plus 4, 3 plus 6, 4 plus 5, etc. So they understand. Then a metallic egg-shaped object enters the shuttle bay. Saru detects that it's not radioactive or anything, but it detects the hydrocarbon for peacefulness all over it. The interior contains a breathable atmosphere, and then it ripples and creates doors that look just like Discovery's. And here's where they realize, 10C wants to continue this in person. Nice. So step into the risky void, essentially.
Because why not?
Yeah,
they're all in now.
Yeah, they're all in, and they don't have the time to fuck around. So
nope.
This is definitely like fuck around and find out. This is very much like we do not have any other choice but to fuck around.
Yes,
we have to fuck out at some point. And I like that it's just
here's your Uber, get the fuck in.
It's the Uber XL. it's got like hand sanitizer and shit in the cubbies.
All right, so cutting back to Booker's ship, Tarka is struggling to try and get through. The defense upgrades are still there. He ends up collapsing on the deck. Tarka takes his communicator and throws him into the brig force field with Reno and apologizes that he had never wanted any of that. Yeah, sure, dude. You just want the power source. You care about nothing else. He says that I've only felt like I've had 2 friends in real life, and you were one of them. And then we assume that Oros was the other. So, okay, cool. Shitty person making shitty choices.
Yep. Selfish piece of shit. Bastard, slimy bitch. I don't like him. Never liked him. I think he's a shithead, and I think he deserves something awful. I don't know what it's going to be other than just like, you never get to see this guy again. Go stand in the corner in the brig and think about what you've done. Also, never leave. Like, that's what I was just like.
Tarka even brags at this point that there's only 30 minutes and they'll be out of the orbit on their way. Right?
No. Yeah, I don't like him. I hate him. Terrible person. Anyway.
So cut back to the shuttle bay, and Ndoye is being like, what about the risk of sending people inside? Then Burnham's like, listen, if 10C wanted to harm us, they could have killed us outside of the hyperfield. They could have popped us inside. They could pop us right now. Why would they send this to hurt us, right? Mm-hmm. Rillick agrees. The failure of diplomacy is far greater than the consequences of any person risking their life. So Rillick herself volunteers to enter. I love Rillick as a character. She's great. She asks Burnham and Saru to join her because they're supposed to this xenoanthropologist. Remember, this is something where Rillick is the one in command. It's the diplomacy aspect. This isn't Burnham's choice. This is Rillick's ball here.
Yeah.
She asked Dr. Harai to stay and to be the like fallback if the communications that we do doesn't work. You stay and you keep it working. She also asked Ndoye and Tarina because their planets are the ones under threat. Tarina agrees, does everything she can to help without hesitation. And Ndoye goes, I don't think I can add anything here. I think I'm more useful on Discovery. And it's like, did nobody think to ask, like, what are you going to do on Discovery? Like, what is your contribution?
If your contribution's nowhere, then all right.
Also, though, if I'm Rillick and Ndoye says that, knowing Ndoye and knowing how like reactionary she can be, I'm probably thinking, yeah, okay, probably not the greatest asset.
Sure.
Because we're all going in for diplomacy reasons, and clearly Ndoye is not Ndoye does not like this shit at all.
Yeah,
so
I can imagine.
Rilek in this situation, I'd be like, yeah, it's fine. You can stay.
Yeah, no, I think Rilek was probably thankful that was her reaction.
Yeah,
but
probably.
It should have been suspicious, though.
Yeah, it should have been. It should have been suspicious. I feel like somebody should have said something.
Honest to God, I don't think that would be suspicious. Knowing her up to this point in her character, I wouldn't have thought anything of it. In fact, I like Renza said, I probably would have been like, good, stay here.
Yeah, that's true. And I feel like maybe that relief kind of would have overshadowed like any sort of like, why particularly would you like to do that? But
great,
like,
you're not going. Let's go. We got to
dip. Let's ride. Get in, girls. Let's go, girl. Yep.
So they agree that they're going to go. Rilek and Burnham agree that they should leave Zora behind as well, rather than take her with. Makes sense. They also then discuss that they're going to bring some samples of the hydrocarbons along in a device that looks kind of like a Green Lantern orb that Saru's going to bring, which is really cool. And then Burnham tells him to go work with Stamets to get everything you need. And she needs a private word with Saru first. So we get this lovely scene of Grudge. Grudge is just lounging around on her bed, hanging out, having a blast, doing nothing, not worrying about anything going on. I love Grudge. She's a queen.
To be a cat on a starship.
Right?
Yeah.
In the world.
She's a cat
nothing
being a cat.
to do.
Just wet food and vibes. That's honestly the dream. To be a cat on a starship. Grudge, the queen.
Yep. So here's where Burnham confesses some of her trepidations to Saru. She can't really talk about this with anybody else. They're the oldest pair of friends on the ship. Also, the command level means that they can't really tell their underlings things sometimes. So she needs to she's having some lack of control, right? And then Saru responds, "Oh, Tarka taught me this cool thing. You should try it. It might help you. It just means, just yelling. It makes me feel better." And so he yells, and the camera shakes when he does. And then she tries to yell too, and she starts out with the most pathetic yawn. Or sorry, it's almost like a yawn more so than a yell. It's bad. And then she gets into it a little bit, and so does Saru, and then they have a good yell. Then they hug, and it was blah blah blah. It was a cool little emotional scene. I think it dragged on a little too long, but it was a cool scene.
Yeah, I mean that's one of those things again where we can talk about our feelings, but can we do it quickly? Because we've got to I really love it. Don't get me wrong, I love that Discovery champions this discussion about mental health and the way that they're feeling and the way that things are going and sort of the way that it affects the crew, because that is important. That's how human life works. We're not perfect beings, we are fallible, we have our moments, but I think that sometimes the time for feelings is maybe not when we have 3 hours before Earth is destroyed. Just personally. However, I really love the scene anyway. I also love that his yell is different, and his yell is louder and more alien and mean and big.
It's a scary yell.
It's nice. It's cool. I really like that scene, but I feel like it's okay. Can we get to the Uber,
let's get back to it.
Can we get in the Uber now? Let's go. Let's go, please.
I love the fact that they actually had Grudge react to the yelling rather than the cat just kind of sitting there lounging. Grudge does not like it.
The cat
Grudge is
fuck this. I didn't say that for
fuck
this.
and gives
bed? God damn.
Yeah, there's some good yowls going on from Grudge during this. What's going on?
I thought you were going to feed me. What the hell is this little display? Can I just have some salmon, please? I love her. I love the queen. I love Grudge. I love that there's a cat.
Cut back to engineering, and Culber asks if Zora is sure that Reno is here because they don't see her. Adira has been there all day, hasn't seen him at all, or hasn't seen her at all. Culber looks around and spots Reno's comm badge beneath the floor, like a grill or a grating or something. And it was showing full biometric readings, even though Reno's not attached to the comm badge. So something's up. Culber suggests,
let's go maybe find out where the fuck. Bad,
finally.
Then they try paging her, and again, doesn't fucking work because she's not here. So
I don't know why they try paging her, because the only way that they can page her through anything is by being like, "Hey, yo, the comm badge is the only way." I mean, I guess if they were doing ship wide, but if it showed that she was in engineering, why would you page just what? Stop. Just go figure it out.
They did do it ship wide though, because in the next scene we actually hear it. Would Commander Reno please report to engineering?
Yeah, I thought that was a good little. Obviously it's going to happen, but I think it was important that was Commander Reno, please report to blah blah blah, and then no one
But yeah, this is all too late anyway.
They're just like, oh yeah. Because I guess they've been doing that all day for like.
Yeah, they've been trying to find her for a couple hours, right?
Hey, if you're this person, get to engineering. We need your help with the pheromones and shit. But like, I don't know. I just thought it was weird that no one reacted to being like, oh, we can't find our chief engineer. Cool, awesome.
Yeah,
let's just go in the orb.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's our next scene. They're back in the shuttle bay. Zora does the page for Reno. Saru approaches Tarina, expressing his belief that there's no reason to be afraid here, right? And she's like, I wish I could say the same. Even though she's Vulcan, she's still uncomfortable with all this. There's still some fear there, which is another sign that Vulcan culture has evolved a little bit. They're allowed to have some level of like personal emotions as long as they don't compromise you, right? And here's where she is uncertain about stepping into danger with somebody with whom she has a personal fondness, which is why she tends to avoid letting others get close. That's when a science officer arrives, gives him the like little Green Lantern, right? Because that's what it looks like. And in they go. Burnham leading the way.
Like profane, because it's not what's happening, but like I feel like every time they have any singular type of connection, somebody cockblocks them. Like it upsets me because like clearly he's just like, oh cool, I'm going to respond to the nope science officer showing up. Cool.
Yep.
I'll just cool. I can't have nice things. It makes me so upset for him. And it's not obviously but like, it's just, God, can you let him talk for 2 more seconds, please?
I actually really liked how the scene ended though. Like the fact that when they walk into the orb thing, it just poofs. It's not a transporter. It doesn't cloak. It doesn't like leave the shuttle bay. No, it just fucking peers.
It's so cool.
Very cool.
It's very neat. Yeah. I kind of wish that it had this like dramatic like lift and then like, but also no, the disappearing was very magician-y. It was cool.
I think the acting here from Harai and Ndoye's actors was perfect because they both had this whole like, oh, well, that's not what I expected would happen. Fuck.
Yeah, because it arrived that way. I mean, it arrived through the little, and then it just goes like, okay, fine. Normal Tuesday. Let's continue. I love it.
Well, Thursday, really. Normal Thursday.
Yeah.
You leave me be.
Okay, so the team steps into the recreation of like Discovery's bridge. It is literally exactly like the bridge. And they think that they're all on their own, but clearly not entirely because they find before them an isolytic weapon that matches exactly like the one that Tarka had used on the DMA. It's not armed, but it's real.
Yeah. And I like that because the first thought in my head when they presented that was explain this.
No, that wasn't how I took it at all. But I can totally see that as a valid way. I could also totally see it as a threat. Like y'all threatened us. Here's your bomb back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
As soon as she goes, it's not armed. I was a bit more like, okay, all right, breathe. Right. But it was definitely a complicated thing that you have to struggle to understand exactly what they want by it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what they receive is now a message on the view screen, which Saru then translates really quickly now that they understand how to do so. And it's the number 178 plus a mathematical equation that equals the Curiosity hydrocarbon. A couple seconds later, Saru thinks the equation is for the expression of a volume in a convex lens-like shape, the DMA itself. So Rillick goes, they must be asking about the weapon because 178, Burnham says, is the atomic number for isolinium. Okay, well, cool. So they're asking why 178 was used in this way. So they don't seem to be aware of the damage that the DMA is causing because, and I think this is a reasonable step, but it's still a step. If they don't understand why somebody would try and stop the DMA, then they must not understand that it's hurting things because it's a natural response to try and stop things that are hurting you.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a step, but I think it's a logical one either way. So they have to try and figure out how to respond that makes them understand.
Yeah. And you're right. And that kind of takes away my theory of that they know they're doing this and they don't care. They don't know what the DMA is doing out there. Because didn't we have another? Oh yeah, I said it last week that this is akin to fishing. The species 10C is outside of the pond. They're fishing. They know the fish are there. They can't see them. So they take their reel and it's in there with the worm dangling around or whatever. Basically, that's the DMA. And if I'm fishing, I don't know that anything is happening besides I'm trying to catch a fish.
Well, we don't know that, and we don't know that they know that we're sentient. So they think maybe like it's just whatever. But like we couldn't see into their bubble. And so it wouldn't shock me to think that they couldn't see into our bubble either at that point.
Exactly.
And so, do they even know? I mean, could it just be some dark expanse of space and like, oh, look, there's an element that we need by,
Yeah. They're just changing spots around the pond fishing. Yeah, that's what they're doing. The second that
I saw the planet and they realized like, oh, they've lost a planet before. Clearly they understand loss. Mm-hmm. And I never really thought they were malevolent because I feel like if they wanted to make a weapon, it'd be different than that. Like the second is like, oh, they're mining. It's like, no, okay, cool. So they have no fucking clue.
I thought that the mining explanation made tons more sense than it being some kind of like a weapon because of the way that it works, right? It sits still and then randomly pulses gravity. And then after a while, it just moves to a random place somewhere else without any sort of logic. That's not a weapon. That doesn't make any sense.
Right. Yeah, a weapon would be more targeted and less erratic. And anyway,
exactly.
Yeah, but anyway, I think it's interesting that like.
So cut back to Ndoye here. She's contacting Booker to tell him what happened to Burnham and asking for instructions. Booker tells Tarka, holding Booker's comm badge, to have her stand down. But Tarka thinks that they could already be dead, right? Like the group that went over with Burnham without any evidence or any reason to think so.
Even though like clearly this species like could kill you just by going like, boop, like literally all they'd have to do is just go, and that's
which is like exactly the argument that Booker makes. It's like, if they wanted to kill us, we'd already be dead.
Yeah.
And for those of you listening to our podcast, please watch the video as well so you can see what Susie Q is doing with these sound effects and the hand motions and everything. So if it's out of context, note the time right here, then go to that. And it's okay. Yeah. It's hilarious.
I know. It's just like they could totally just like pick them up like a little speck and throw them across the universe.
You talk with your hands. It's fine. It's good.
I'm on my commute and all I hear is boop.
I want it to be accessible.
Boops, bleeps.
Boops to bleeps.
Bleeps. Oh man, it's late.
All right.
No.
All right. So Tarka sends a text message to Ndoye telling her to proceed with the sabotage plans, and Ndoye inputs the override, and the plasma begins to erupt from the nacelle. And so, Tarka gets his wish, right? His response to like Booker was essentially that we only have a few hours before DMA hits Earth. We don't have time, right? Like, who knows how long they'll be in there? We need to act now. So he does. He doesn't care about anything besides getting that power core as usual.
Oh, God. I hate him.
Now we're back inside of the replica bridge. And they have come to a decision on what they want to say. They want to say us plus the DMA equals the terror or the fear hydrocarbon. Makes sense. Mm-hmm. But they need to decide how they want to say us. So the argument starts with, we should say that there are 4 because there are 4 people on the ship. 4 may have some like baggage. Okay. How about 6? Because carbon, and we're primarily made out of carbon. Maybe that has other meanings as well. So we need to come up with something specific. So Burnham comes up with a really cool idea of telling them that their atmosphere is what they're going to represent. So they say 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, et cetera, the makeup of air to be recognized as us, right? Makes sense. So plus DMA equals terror. And then immediately after they send that, like without much of a delay at all, the 10C reply with a greater than symbol and then the hydrocarbon for sadness. Now, here's where I think that there is a space for misinterpretation. I don't know that Tarina's interpretation of this is correct. I'm not sure. She describes it as saying that it means great sadness. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It could also mean greater than sadness. Whatever reason they're doing this for is greater than the sadness that it results in.
I thought that too.
I don't know, but I think it's a valid concern here, right? Like they could have a really good reason for doing it and they understand it's sad, but it's a greater reason than the sadness.
Right. Yeah, and I get that part. Just want to throw this out here real quick. Nice little reference with them not wanting to go with 4. Coincidentally, 4 is an unlucky number in Chinese because it means death. So you really don't see the number 4 used, or basically it's like our 13.
Yeah.
In the US, our number 13 to them is 4. And that's a big gamble because to the 10C, you don't know if they have the same kind of thing, that there's an unlucky number that they don't like.
Yeah, and so it was useful to use a series of numbers that represented a certain thing, because clearly they know how to make our atmosphere, so they just made it, they understand it, so let's mirror it back to them.
Yeah.
I thought that was so neat. I just think I did. Big props to the linguists that worked on this and to the people that made that possible, because it's awesome.
And for the ones that memorized the periodic table.
That too.
It's just so Star Trek though, right? Like this whole conversation is trying to figure out how to say something without saying it with the words that we know. It's super good. It reminds me again of Arrival, of Contact, of all these classic science fiction greats, right? And this is like I said, probably my favorite episode of Discovery. I'm not sure if it's not it. It's so good. All right. So our next scene is now in engineering. We've got Culber explaining to Stamets that Zora found evidence that Reno's been missing and her comm badge was tampered with. It almost, if it didn't sound crazy, seems like somebody took Reno off the ship. And then here's where Stamets realizes and says, I should have realized something was wrong when I couldn't find her. I was looking for her all day to fix the orb stuff. And it's like, yeah, no shit.
Maybe
you should have said something.
Been said, sir. Oh my God.
But yeah,
the only thing about this episode that pisses me off is just like, why would you not know?
Zora thinks that she found the answer. The access panel to 4351 was briefly opened, but the maintenance check isn't until the end of the day. So they look inside, and Adira immediately finds a device that was planted there by Tarka, and they immediately pull it off and are like, this should not be here. So very quick catch, very astute to find it and remove it. So good job for them. On the bridge, they immediately start freaking out about the plasma stream that was leaking out and now is burning a hole in the orb. As soon as it's removed, Zora confirms and then informs the bridge that, hey, Booker's ship was attached, and the bridge already knows because they're like minutes too late, minutes behind. And so the hole is burned into the orb and they push off. We can visually see them push off with a tractor beam, and through the hole they go.
Yeah. That's like cool little scene. Property damage to escape.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was a pretty cool scene visually, and like timing wise, it kind of is well done. It just doesn't make much sense that they would have not noticed Reno being missing that long.
That's
true. The rest of it all fits. But not the missing engineer.
Yeah, Tarka breaking and exiting makes me sad and upset. I don't like this guy. I know I've said it about 16 times. I don't like this guy. I hate this motherfucker. But yeah, it's pretty. Yeah. It's a pretty scene, but it's very much like Zora's like, hey, yo, something's not right. And I'm like, yeah. I also would have been useful maybe an hour ago.
I also really like that when they hailed the bridge or called the bridge to be like, hey, this is going, we already know, we're already on it, busy kind of thing, because that's what the bridge should be. They should be on top of these things. So
yeah, agreed.
All right, so back on the replica bridge, they're preparing to transmit a message to ask the 10C to remove the DMA when the lights flicker, and then the 4 appear right back on Discovery immediately and instantly, no delay there, right? Yeah. So Harai tells Burnham that Booker's ship was attached and escaped through the orb. Tark is on his way to the power source. Yeah, it looks real bad. It looks real bad for our heroes here, folks.
Also, here's the thing: not to be like cynical, somebody's gonna die. I don't know who's gonna die, but somebody's gonna die. And I'm scared, and I don't like it.
It's gonna be Tarka. I'm sure.
Yes, but like I feel like they might actually kill off like. I don't know. I hope I'm wrong, but I hope not Jet. If we get one more scene of Jet and then death, I'm going to be sad. I'm also going to be sad if Book does, but like also,
I think Book is going to die.
I think Book's going to die.
Yeah, I think his empathic like abilities are somehow going to be used to try and like mend the rift that's been created by all this with 10C, and it's just going to overwhelm him, right? Like it's going to cook his brain, kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe that like Michael and Book have more to do, but
I hope not. I want this relationship to be done, right? Like, you're like, he's a traitor. He has done bad things. He's been manipulated. She said that if he continued, he'd be crossing a line. He crossed the line. It's over. Don't get back together with him, girl. Leave him alone. You can do better, girl.
Yeah. Let's move on to the Saru relationship.
No, Saru's busy. Okay, we've got one last little bit. Yeah, Saru's
I want to see. I want to see.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you were saying you wanted Burnham and Saru to get together.
No. Oh my God, no.
Fuck no.
No.
Oh, no.
Okay. Oh my God. Good. All right. So.
That's like jump scare material. God.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Move on. God.
So back on Booker's ship, Booker admits to Reno that he should have listened to her, right? But like Reno says, you had to reach this realization on your own, right? And that's when he shows, she pulls out the comm badge that she hasn't been able to use because their security system's good enough. So she pulls it out, and it's like we can send a quick message. And we finally get the explanation for why the licorice was a thing, which I got to tell you, I'm so glad they explained, because I mean, it's accurate, right? Glyceric acid, when it dissolves, can conduct electricity. That's all true. Cool. I'm just so glad that they said it, right? Rather than just be like, here's the random MacGuffin that when you attach to a communicator makes it powered. No,
it's very cool.
I'm glad that they explained it. So they get past the ship security with Booker's access codes, and then they receive the message on Discovery's bridge. The message is essentially a voice message from Reno saying that you have to stop us, whatever it takes. It's going to leave a toxic waste dump headed right to Earth. They're going to steal the power source. It'll destroy the hyperfield in 10C. Like, you've got to stop us.
Some shit's going down. We got to be stopped.
Yep. And then Burnham is asking on the bridge if they can follow Booker out the same way, but the orb was already sealed. So they are still stuck where they are. And 10C is apparently not talking because they're pissed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sorka, you bastard. Piece of shit.
They were so close to getting done.
That's the thing about Discovery that always pisses me off, is that they always get like almost there with this, and then somebody fucks it up, and then we have another 3 episodes to deal with it. And it stop. It pisses me off, and I know it's on purpose, and I'm screenwriting and like suspense, but fuck, it's infuriating the whole time.
So yeah. Overall, I give this episode like 5 stars out of 5. I think it was a fantastic representation of the best things of Star Trek, right? Like diplomacy, like communications, overcoming personal problems. Everything is good here. My only complaint is this Jet Reno being missing for so long and no one noticing. Whatever, I can overlook it for the rest of the episode being great. I do think that the yelling scene with Saru and Burnham was a little too long. I get it, right? But whatever. They made up for it by having grudge in that scene a ton. So I'm okay with it overall. What do you guys think?
Yeah, 5 out of 5 for me. It's one of my favorite episodes of Discovery and maybe Trek ever. Especially the scene where they walk onto the shuttle bay and it's that very first contacty vibe. I love it. I love it. It's so Trek, and the linguistics and the sciences and the sort of showing the necessity of all of these things about Starfleet and why they still have them, even though we have replicators, we have universal translators, but that shit doesn't always work. And we need these experts in the field. And, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful episode.
There's a lot in this episode that to me really encapsulates what Star Trek is. I really enjoyed watching the science and the math and the collaboration that went in towards doing this first contact. Where everyone played a part. So that was great. And I hope that they do that for the season finale, that there's some more teamwork that's involved And so, yeah, great episode. Really love this one. Thank you to our audience, our listeners and our viewers for watching this review with us. And we are officially into that slap happy time. So we probably ought to get while the getting's good. All right. So as always, live long and prosper.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our Patreon and Anchor supporters. Big thanks to Stephanie Baker, S. Tam, Anne Marie, Jim Cook, and Nora Hickson. We really appreciate your support. Thanks for being a part of Beyond Trek Podcast.
We are Beyond Trek Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your ears. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.